Happy April, everybody. It's Meteorologist Joe Martucci. We are here for another edition of our Something in the Air podcast brought to you by the Press of Atlantic City in conjunction here with some great help from Stockton University. We are getting into the warmer months. Also means we're getting into the more humid months. So I figured, what better time to talk about something that's near and dear, maybe not only to our hearts, but to our heads as well, our hair. We're going to talk all about weather and hair for the next half hour here. And joined with me, I had to do it. I had to have the guy who cuts my hair here. We have the manager and master color educator for Daja Hair Salon in Ventnor, a Best of the Press winner in 2020, David Velasco. David, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be
I gotta
here.
say, it's weird not like, you standing over me while you're cutting my head. We're kind of like side to side here. I don't know if you feel the same.
It's different.
It's different. All right, definitely different. All right, so let's start off right from the top. Where we'll get into the personal life story of you first, but let's start off from the top here. What's one thing that most people wouldn't know about hair when it comes to the weather, and maybe something other than the humidity and the freeze?
That is, I mean, just like the weather, it's unpredictable. You can't really, you can do your best to try to control everything from frizziness or smoothness and go outside and it's gone in a second just because you didn't count for the wind, you didn't count for the humidity or the dryness or whatever. And so the best way to keep your hair is to stay indoors.
I agree. That's why I stay indoors. And I have my window behind me, so I get the best of both worlds. I can see what it's like outside, and at the same time, keep the hair look good. All right, David. So you're a Atlantic City guy. You were born in Atlantic City, or at least I think you were born in Atlantic City. You went to high school in
No,
Atlantic City. You were not born
I
in Atlantic
did.
City.
No,
Yeah.
I'm from El Salvador. I've been in the US since 85.
Okay.
It's interesting because everything that's going on with immigration, that was me in 1985,
Wow.
leaving a country that was in a civil war, walking to school and seeing soldiers and machine guns, and that's the norm. And, going to sleep and hearing guns at night. And, I don't want to say that it was bad as a sense from like a little kid because I left when I was 6 and a half. So I have a very small bubble of life and it was good. It was easy. It was simple. I remember great things from it, but I also remember these things that happened that I had no idea were part of my life in my world during that time. And then we came to California. We lived there for about 2 years. And then we came to Jersey in 87, 88. I think it was the end, November 87. And then we've been here ever since. So
How did you?
I've been here. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, how did you feel? I know you were young, but how did you feel those first couple of months when you made it here to the United States?
Well, it's what people don't understand is when you are like, when you're in these third world countries, what to come to the US and live the American dream, which I've lived after, being here for like 37 years, if I did the math right. And like you're here to do better and to have a better opportunity and do things, you're not here for anything else. You're trying to give yourself and your kids a better life because you can't over there. Not that life is bad. So coming like I was one of those, people that came in illegally. I crossed that border. I think of that little girl and that man. That could have been me, my mom, and my sister lying there, drowned. The coyotes that crossed us could have raped us and killed us and just left us there. And, there's so much that could have happened that I don't think about because I was so young. To
Mhm.
me, it was a road trip. We were coming to the US and everything's going to be so much better. Life is so good over here. People are so good. And, you were going to have opportunities that you're never going to have over there. So, even now, if you think about somebody makes what I make in like 4 hours in a month over there.
Yeah.
So it's a very big difference in how you live and how people live. So coming here, to us, McDonald's was a big thing. Like, oh my God, we're in McDonald's. Like, do you know what I mean? It just was
Yeah.
something like that. Also, with how we grew up and being poor, like that was sort of like a treat for us. It wasn't like fast food as I know
Right.
it now.
Right.
Um, and honestly, going to California was the same. There's a lot of Mexicans, there's a lot of Spanish people from Central America. So it was kind of like similar but different.
Hmm.
I learned when I went to school there, I was taught in English and I was taught in Spanish. So my English over there was very broken, but my Spanish was really good. The
Yeah.
biggest change was coming here because coming to Jersey and experiencing cold weather was something that was like, snow, like, oh my God, snow, snow, snow.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, it's pretty and it's cold. And it's like, oh, I guess I need a coat. Oh, I
Yeah.
guess I need this. So the biggest change I think for me was coming here in the big weather change because in California you wear shorts all year round.
Yeah.
It's not that cold, so it's really the same. El Salvador is very tropical. It's either
Sure.
hot dry or wet dry. That's it. There's not much difference. I'm actually a lot darker over there because I constantly have a tan, as opposed to the winters here lighting me up because of that. And so the biggest change I would say is just coming to New Jersey and experiencing cold.
Well, well, first off, I appreciate you sharing your story. I wasn't expecting to go in that direction. But yes, that's why there's a lot of people, obviously, who are in New Jersey and are like, yeah, I think I'm gonna make my way over to Florida at some point, or maybe California.
Mhm.
So, talk about just opening up the salon. How long have you had the salon? And I believe it's been Ventnor. It's been in Ventnor throughout its
Yeah.
entire operation. I
Mhm.
believe you moved at one point in time. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, we were in the Ventnor Plaza for about 6 years. We're coming on to 9 years in June 23rd, and September 26th, which is the anniversary of when we opened, will be the official 15 years of us being opened.
Sure.
Um, James was in the casino business. The writing was on the wall, and he had gone through 4 regimes, and we talked about opening a salon. And you know uh, I've been a hairdresser now 22 years or something like that, over 22 years. And I love what I do, but I never wanted to own a salon. I've had the experience to help people, and every salon that I was at, I tried to make it my own because this is where I work. And it's a lot of work. And I didn't want that because that's being the boss, that's being the owner, that's being the accountant, that's being a hairdresser behind the chair for 8 to 10 hours. So it actually worked out really good, a good partnership. He is great with customer service. He's amazing at social media. He
Yeah.
was doing social media with Facebook and all of those outlets before it was a thing. Um, and so it's a really good partnership. He runs the business, he runs the salon. I get to do what I love. I get to teach the staff. So it was a really amazing partnership to do that. And then, like I said, 6 years later, we moved to across the street. It's a more independent place. I mean, like, it's not a big strip mall, so it's a lot.
Yeah.
The spot
It's
is more
one
like,
building.
oh, it's just a salon, and yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
know what you're saying. Um, and James too is he's a weather guy himself, a little bit weather enthusiast.
oh yeah,
So
oh my God, I know. It's funny
am I
because
boring you between you must be
he's
bored
been
between
telling
him
me.
and me.
Oh, not at all. I think it's very interesting. I'm a science geek to begin with. Like, my biggest thing was I want to be a scientist. I love understanding how things work. I love taking things apart. I like putting them back together. I like changing things. I like creating things. So to me, it's just an amazing thing, especially when, you know, you have to understand that if you think of it from a metaphysical point of view where the weather is alive and it's an entity or a thing, you can't really predict it because, you know, one little thing, all of a sudden it changes completely. And, you know, you guys have it hard because a lot of people are like, oh my God, they always lie. Well, they're not really telling you a truth. They're telling you a prediction,
Right.
which means what could possibly happen.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think about, you know, with Superstorm Sandy as an example, we had about 7 days. That's a lot of time to prepare for an impact. Whereas, you know, 1920, 1940, oh, it shows up and we're in it and we're drowning and it's raining and you know what I mean? Like, so to have that much time to prepare for the worst, even if it doesn't happen, it's amazing. Like that itself, to have that knowledge and ability, which you never had, it's great. And I think the weather gets a bad report. Get it?
I see what you did there. But I agree with you 100%. You know, science is a lot of science is a prediction, and a lot of times it's very, 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 very accurate predictions. But you think about hurricanes, and you know our hurricane track forecast, so where a hurricane would make landfall, is as accurate 5 days out now in 2021 as
Wow.
it was 3 days out in 2000. So
Wow.
you have the bigger lead time. You go back to 1940. I mean, sometimes you'd have a hurricane warning or a storm warning that runs from like South Carolina up to Massachusetts because you weren't exactly sure. You knew it was going to be somewhere there, but that's still a
Right.
big range. So now just how
Right.
accurate and detailed we are with a lot is great. And, you know, put it one more way. 40 years ago, no one was asking a meteorologist on Monday what the weather was going to be like that
Right.
weekend and really expect an answer to plan their events around. Now
Right.
they do. So,
You,
you know,
you
I
know,
agree
it's
with you
also
100% on that. Yeah.
what's frustrating sometimes with people, it's kind of like I feel because I have a, you know, I see a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people, and it's interesting that like, oh my God, it didn't rain and the weather said it's supposed to rain, and oh my God. And I'm like, well, aren't you happy that it didn't rain and that you were ready for it? Because if you weren't ready for it, you would be wet. So, and you know,
Right.
I tend
Yeah.
to look at things from the brighter side. You know, my glass is always half full and then I always end up filling it again because you can do that if it's
Yeah.
empty.
I understand. I try to be the same way with the weather. Most of the times when you just see that shower icon on your phone, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to rain all day. Most of the time it doesn't. You'll have plenty of time in between those showers. Well, David, here's what we're going to do. We're
Well,
going
you
to take a
know,
quick break.
it
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. We'll let you talk for one more second. Then we're going to get the break.
okay, I was just gonna say the app that I have, so when it says rain, I always look down. It says the percent of precipitation. So if it's like, you know, less than a percent, I know it's not gonna be that, it's not gonna
That's
rain.
right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
Because it's
I hear
such
you
a
100%.
low thing.
Yeah, you gotta look into a bunch of different, you know, accounts, and the percentage is really, you know, how likely it's to rain times what the area is going to be. So if you look at Atlantic County, it's a 40%. It's how likely it is, and then how much of the county is going to rain. So yeah, you're right. When you see that 1% or 5%, whatever, not really going to happen. All right, let's get the break. We're going to go on the other side and talk all about weather and hair. We're going to toss out some different weather scenarios too, and we're going to have him answer this for us. This is the Something in the Air podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Something in the Air podcast. We're talking all about weather and hair with David Velasco of Daja Hair Salon in Ventnor, also known as the guy who cuts my hair, except for actually this last time because you were out. We had Christian cut my hair. I think he did a pretty good job. What do you think? I
It
think he
looks
did a
good.
really good job. Yeah, it looks good. Is is that a cough because you're just,
No,
like,
it wasn't. It is an actual
okay.
cough.
Okay, I was just making sure. So let's get into we'll talk about the nitty gritties here. We'll talk about the different kinds of weather, hair, maybe some solutions, and we'll go from there. So let's talk about types of hair. Is there a type of hair that is just best for all kinds of weather that can get thrown our way?
No, because you know what? The thing about it is, even if you were to say that my hair is the best type, it never stays that way. You
Mm.
know, your hair is affected by what you eat, your stress, your emotions. If you ever notice people that have gone through surgery, especially anesthesia, their hair texture is very different. So you could have a banding where it's great hair, and then this new hair, it's just very brittle and very dry or just bad because, or very fine because of the process of the surgery and the medications, the anesthesia. So it's very difficult to have it be consistent. There are people that have great ends, but the roots are too greasy or too dry. Like it varies. So there isn't a specific, the thing that will keep good hair is making sure you understand what the weather is, making sure you're conditioning and that your hair is as healthy as possible. Make sure you're not doing a lot of mechanical damage to it, blow drying it, heat styling with a flat iron or curling iron, making sure you're doing conditioning treatments to maintain it, to put back things that you're taking out, um, and then cover it up. Cover it up before you go out or get ready or do your hair in the location that you're going to be in.
Oh, that's
That's
actually so get
that's
your
that
hair.
will be the best.
I should start doing my hair here then. That's what you're saying.
Right. Right.
Huh.
Now, the other thing too, it's like, some people do it in in the bathroom after they shower. So if you shower with a lot of hot water, there's a lot of steam there. So that's going to affect, even if you dry it all, if there's still moisture there, it could then eventually, maybe it might not, it might take a little bit for it to mess it up. But if you do it outside where you didn't or different from the location,
Yeah.
that's another way to do it to
Got it.
help.
All right, that's good to know. That's good to know. I'm taking notes as you're saying this, just so I know for the future. All right, so let's talk about the obvious one. That's the humidity. Even on our in our actual newspaper, in our graphic, we actually have the frizz factor for today. Actually, we just started turning it on for April here, so it seems to be a hit with some people. They like it. We actually switched from the arthritis index to the frizz index. So when we talk about arthritis, that's good too. So, we talk about humidity, you have to talk about the dew point. So for those of you weather enthusiasts here, pulled out a couple of numbers from Atlantic City International Airport. So when you look at dew points, measure of moisture in the air, March averages 34 degrees. That's pretty dry. By May, it's 52. Pretty dry, but it's actually pretty comfortable. You feel a little bit of moisture in the air. But then for July and August, our dew point averages 66. Now, what I like to say is when you get up above 65, you're starting to really feel it. And then sticky is above 70, oppressive is above 75. And as we all know here living in South Jersey, we have had many, many oppressive days, especially during the summer. So let's just talk about breaking it down. What causes this frizz factor, and what's the best way to keep your hair looking good? I mean, I know in the summer, like my hair, I got like a little bit of wavy hair. During the summer, like it just kind of like falls down. You have to keep, especially if you're outside for a while.
So see the thing with right. So I mean, honestly, I think the biggest thing is that the change from your indoor climate to your outdoor climate because you're styling your hair indoors and then you go outdoors. So that's a big difference. You know, when you go out, you come from the heat and you go and you have glasses and they fog when you come into the house. That's a major change. So that's going to affect your hair. So one of the things for me, it's just trying not to make the difference so different, meaning such a high contrast. If you like it to be colder, you're always going to have an issue because when you go out, it's going to be tremendously hotter than when
Mm.
you were inside.
Yeah.
But what you can do to prevent, honestly, especially the curlier your hair, the more drier it is naturally, because the cuticle, when it curves around to make the curl, doesn't just lay flat, it kind of opens. And so it lets moisture out, so it dries out. Or I don't want to say dries out, but it's drier than if
Right.
somebody that's straight hair and the cuticle is just laying flat. So the more you have those openings is the more it attracts, especially if, you know, those areas tend to be uh, ionic. So I think it's more of a negative charge. So if there's positive in the moisture, cationic, I think it's the word, it's going to attract each other. So the dryness attracts the moisture. So if you do conditioning treatments, that helps put back the moisture, and that usually lasts a couple of shampoos, and then you just have to keep doing it. And again, a lot of it will be preventive. If you can prevent your hair from being too dry, then it shouldn't affect the weather shouldn't affect your hair because it's kind of in a more consistent state.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good to know. Yeah, I'm thinking about conditioner. I know you were saying conditioner earlier. As a guy, yeah, I never really think of conditioner. I do use conditioner, but most guys don't. So, is it a good thing for guys, even with the shorter hair, to put the conditioner in as well?
It is. I mean, especially if you have very curly hair, it's naturally drier than straighter hair,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're going to blow dry it. Now, the thing that I will say, especially if you're styling your hair, for most guys that style your hair, you see the thing with men and conditioner is that most men tend to have shorter hair. So the damage that is caused within 2 or 3 months of styling is cut out when you
Mm,
get a haircut. So it never gets to a point where somebody that has very long hair that has 2 inches from the scalp that are great, then 4 inches that in the middle that are so, and then the ends are completely dry and frizzy.
right.
And so you can see the different stages, and it has to do more with what's going on. So that's part of the thing. It's always going to help you, it's going to give you sheen. Now, the other thing with the humidity that you were talking about earlier is if you have enough products in your hair, especially if you wash your hair daily, then those products will help keep your hair the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to make sure you find enough of products, especially if some of the products either have a oil, they're not necessarily water soluble, because if it's water soluble, the moisture is going to mix with it and it's not going to work. But if it's not water soluble, then it almost makes like a barrier where the water can't come to it. Have you ever woken up with bedhead and for some reason it was just your scalp was very greasy and then you wet it, but then it kind of stayed the same? That's
Yeah.
kind of the same. That's kind of the same principle. Is that
Okay.
if you you cover your hair enough with something, and sometimes in the past there were silicones used, and I know there's like a stigma with, oh, silicones are not good, and if you use them too much and stuff like that, then yes, it's going to build up on your hair. But for us having short hair, it's going to get off. It doesn't really matter. Or if you're washing it on a daily basis, you're getting it out. So
Right.
a lot of those things are more like from the past, and more a lot of the quality products, even over the counter products, are the
Yeah.
quality is a lot better than what it used to be.
Good to know. Okay. Now, what about the opposite here going into the winter, right? Because I think winter with all the dry air that's around probably isn't the best. So, especially in
Ah,
South
it,
Jersey, we can get some cold, chilly, dry breezes that come through. So, what do you recommend for that?
well, the thing with it is that it depends. So for me, I'll use an example. So if I were to straighten my hair in the summer, as I go outside and step, you literally see my hair go from straight to like a big S pattern to like a smaller, and
Yeah.
then eventually it just curls. You literally
Hmm.
see it like
Moving back up.
absorbing everything. So if I want to have it straight in the winter, I mean in the summer, I don't even do that, because unless I'm going to just stay inside, because it's not, I'll lose it immediately as I go outside. Now the reverse happens in the winter. It's drier. So now I can straighten my hair and I can go outside and it will be straight when I straighten my hair, I'll straighten it for about 2 or 3 days, depending on how greasy my scalp gets. But so again, that's beneficial because it's actually drier. So if your hair is naturally dry, then it's gonna make it drier. So therefore it's counterproductive. So then that's when you probably need more moisturizing shampoos or conditioners or products so that it helps not get over dry. So that's kind of the thing. And again, it depends on what you're trying to do that will benefit or not your hair. Because if for me, I have really good hair. I'm blessed, I have to
I
say.
know
So
you
for me,
do.
it's not that
Show it
difficult,
off,
to be
man.
honest.
That's I
I'm
understand.
afraid
But
when, you know what I'm afraid of? When my gray hair dominates.
yeah.
That gray hair is just a completely different beast than your natural hair. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that's going to affect it, because even if you had straight hair, your gray or white hair can be very wiry or very
Yeah.
rough.
Mm-hmm.
So it completely changes your hair texture.
Well, I got a little bit on the sides here, on the back, a little bit of gray, so I guess I'm a little bit
Mhm.
different than depending on where you are. All right. Last question for you here before we wrap up. So can I think of people who it's the winter, they have their hair, they wash their hair, they got a shower, they walked outside, they don't
I
dry
know
their
it.
hair. Can it freeze and then break off the hair? And if it can, have you seen this before?
Okay, so I've actually had my hair freeze before many
Okay.
times, especially when I was younger. I don't necessarily, my hair is pretty damp when not soaking wet, but pretty damp when I leave. And especially if I have product, it's still wet for the most part. So it's frozen. I've never had it break because I also understand that if it's frozen, that if I try to move it, it could break off. So I've never tried it myself. I mean, if it's cold enough to give you frostbite on any exposed skin and it freezes, I'm sure it'll break if you just move it to the side or something. So it's, I think it's possible. I've never done it. I've never seen anybody try, but maybe this winter, next winter I'll have a project.
Well, that's fine. If we can come on over with the press, we'll get it all set up. We'll take a video. We can make it all happen if you want. Get the embarrassing moments on camera. No,
Yeah, there
great.
you
Well,
go.
David, this was really cool. Lots of good stories, both about your professional work and your personal life. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it on up here?
The biggest thing is just learn your hair. You learn about your type of hair, research. There's so many videos with so many people that can give you different ideas, and just find the things that work for you. And what that means is you do it and you like what your hair does. If you don't like it, then don't do it. And there's many things you can find out there that will work that you'll like. So just do that. And once you get familiarized with your hair, be ready to start over, because you could do all that work and you have a perfect routine and it works great. And then the weather changes and you're like, okay, now I'm back to square one.
Gotcha. Yes, it all comes full circle. All right, David. Well, hey, Daja Hair Salon, David Velasco. Appreciate the time. We're gonna wrap it on up here for this edition of our Something in the Air podcast. David, I will catch you at the beginning of May. And speaking of the beginning of May, we will have back on New Jersey State climatologist / my birthday buddy, and it is our birthday month in May / my meteorological father, Dave Robinson. We're going to talk about the month of April. Until then, stay safe, take care, everybody. And this is the Something in the Air podcast.